Greetings, friends. I'm Vitaly Portnikov. Kazakhs are fighting for Putin. This was the title of a video that appeared yesterday on the APD YouTube channel of the well-known Kazakh journalist Lukpan Akhmedyarov. In this video, my colleague talked about how citizens of his country are participating in military actions in Ukraine on the side of the Russian army. And we are talking about a large number of people, about 600 Kazakh citizens who are fighting on the side of Russia. However, the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Republic of Kazakhstan knows nothing about their presence on the Russian-Ukrainian front. Akhmedyarov talked about how his compatriots were lured to work in Russia and then were offered to sign contracts for service in the Russian army as part of the so-called special military operation, which is actually Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. And today, it became known that Lukman Akhmedyarov was detained by Kazakh law enforcement agencies. The journalist himself, in the short broadcast he managed to record at the moment of his detention, suggested that it was precisely about how he reported on the participation of his compatriots in Russia's war against Ukraine. It is obvious that revealing the facts of this participation is extremely disadvantageous for the leadership of the Republic of Kazakhstan, because they cast doubt on Kazakhstan's neutrality in the Russian-Ukrainian war. And this is at a time when President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev is trying to strengthen his country's relations with Western countries, particularly during the recently held European Union Central Asia Summit. But the fact remains, if Kazakhstan cannot protect its citizens from participating in Russia's aggressive war against Ukraine, if the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Kazakhstan does not respond to such revelations, if the journalist who reports on them is detained, then a rather serious question arises about the true impartiality of the Kazakh leadership and how well they understand in Astana the full complexity of the consequences of such a policy for the authority of the Republic of Kazakhstan. After all, in the end, we must remember one quite important thing. The outcome of Russia's war against Ukraine will also determine whether the Republic of Kazakhstan will be able to defend not only its independence, but also its sovereignty. Will Astana be able to make decisions without looking back at how they will be perceived in the Kremlin? It depends on how much the people of Kazakhstan themselves will determine the future of their own state. After all, it is obvious that the war currently taking place in Ukraine is a colonial war, with Moscow's main goal being the restoration of its empire within the borders of the Soviet Union as of 1991. And Kazakhstan, like Ukraine, was one of the Soviet republics. Well, not to mention that there are far more ethnic Russians in Kazakhstan itself than in modern Ukraine. And this could at any moment serve as a reason for the Kremlin to make political and cultural claims of any kind against Astana. Claims that could at any moment lead to the appearance of so-called little green men on Kazakh soil. And yes, the overwhelming majority of Kazakhs do not believe in this. But then the question arises, what are their compatriots fighting for in Ukraine? What are they defending besides their own material interests? Do they understand that by supporting Russian occupiers on Ukrainian soil, they are effectively laying the groundwork for the collapse of their own statehood? And it is clear that asking questions to people who have taken up arms to kill citizens of another state for money might not be worthwhile, but these questions could be addressed to the leadership of the Republic of Kazakhstan, because it is precisely the leadership of Kazakhstan, the president of the country, and the security forces that are responsible for limiting the opportunities for Kazakhstani citizens to participate in Russia's war against Ukraine. After all, Astana could clearly state such a position to the Russian political leadership by halting the recruitment of its citizens for this unjust and aggressive war. But, as they say, The attitude towards journalists is always a litmus test of what is really happening in politics and what remains behind the dry lines of official statements and votes. The murder of Kazakhstani journalist Aido Sadikov in Kiev has not yet been investigated. Meanwhile, we know that those involved in this murder, who are connected to working in Kazakhstani special services, are located in the territory of the Republic of Kazakhstan. The detention of journalist Lukpan Akhmedyarov, who reported on the recruitment of Kazakhstani citizens for the war in Ukraine, is also a clear indicator of the attitude towards the involvement of their own citizens in this war, when they are not looking for recruiters, when they do not express diplomatic protest to those who enable the participation of Kazakhstani citizens in the war, and thus their deaths in this war, but instead detain the one who first raised this issue in the Kazakhstani information space, one of the first. It is clear that such an attitude clearly indicates how in Astana they generally do not want such information to spread. This is not new. When Pskov journalist Lev Schlossberg, who at that time still held much more realistic views on his country's aggressive policy towards Ukraine, reported on the graves of Pskov paratroopers who were buried without any honors and ceremonies secretly to hide the participation of the Russian army in the war against Ukraine. During the period from 2014 to 2022, he was beaten by so-called unknown individuals who are, however, well known to us, employees of the Federal Security Service of Russia and other Russian security agencies, ensuring the interests of the bandit Putin regime. That is, in such states, it is always not the one who commits the crime who is guilty, but the one who exposes the crime, who points out the true meaning of what is happening. And even if Lukpan Akhmedyarov is released, the distrust towards the position taken by official Astana regarding the service of its compatriots in the aggressive and bandit-like Russian army, the same army that was already in Kazakhstan in January 2022, if it weren't for Putin's intention to attack Ukraine, might not have left. All these suspicions will persist for a long time and will erode trust in the future. Thank you, friends. Stay on this channel, subscribe to it, follow my social media and the channels on Patreon, buy me a coffee, Donatello, which help